And it is the Fighting Taters Show, episode 2. We got a lot to cover here today. Closing ceremonies from Paris and the Olympics just a couple days ago. And Idaho high school football season just around the corner. Practices beginning this week. Games just a couple weeks away. My name is Lucas Gebhardt. My co-host Ryan Luke. He is off this week. So in today, the perfect man to talk about Idaho high school football with us. That is Brandon Baney for IdahoSports.com. We have a list of the top 11 high school seniors in terms of recruiting entering their final year in high school and look forward to where they will be playing their college football. Some of them have already committed, some of them still to commit. So a lot to cover here today. And Brandon, welcome into the show. Just episode 2 here on the Fighting Taters, but good to have you along.
Yeah, happy to be called upon out of the bullpen in relief. Hopefully I pitch a little better than my Boston Red Sox. They're tied 7-7 with the Texas Rangers right now, Lucas.
Yeah. Baseball season in full swing for sure. But did you catch much of the Olympics, or are you some Olympics, no Olympics, all Olympics? How do you feel on those?
I am some Olympics.
Yeah.
If I'm bored during the day and I want to kill some time, I'll tune into the live stuff. Otherwise, I tune into the tape delayed primetime stuff. But yes, I was all in on the Olympics this year.
Yeah. What would you say is your favorite sport to watch? I mean, the thing I like about it is like you get all these sports that you don't normally get. I mean, swimming, gymnastics, right? Those are the top Olympic sports, but you sometimes get. But you get like BMX, water polo, beach volleyball, like those kinds of things.
Yeah. In the past, I've really loved the indoor track cycling because the bikes look different and kind of like from the future, and it's like just a short sprint. I really enjoyed the BMX biking this year. There was a guy from Bozeman, Montana, my home state, that was competing, and so that was kind of cool. One I really enjoyed this year was the kayaking on the whitewater, where you'd have to go down and go around the little barriers, and people were pushing and shoving each other. I liked it because everybody had nicknames. There was a guy from France called the Pink Panther. There was a guy from New Zealand. They legit called him the Butcher of New Zealand. It was pretty cool, the nicknames.
Yeah. I've always been a fan of either the indoor volleyball or the beach volleyball, and I just love watching volleyball. I just think it's such a cool sport that we just don't get to watch a whole lot. So I think that's my favorite one. So I mean, welcome into the Fighting Tater Show once again. You watching the show on IdahoSports.com. You can watch it live on the YouTube channel, Facebook page, the X account, formerly known as Twitter. You can also listen to the show on IdahoSports.com or wherever you download and subscribe to your podcast. So just talking about the Olympics here, Brandon, let's go ahead and get into our Olympic recap. We had 3 athletes that are graduates of Idaho high schools. That is Shari Hawkins. She was a Madison High School graduate, competed in the women's heptathlon. Mateo Jorgensen was a men's road cyclist, and Mateo is one of the best cyclists in the world right now, as he competed in the Tour de France and the Olympics. Tried just doing one of those and see how you feel afterwards. And then Alyssa Mendoza competed in the women's boxing. She is a Middleton High School graduate. So where do you want to start here, Brandon? You want to start with Shari Hawkins?
Yeah, I feel like that was the biggest story, right? Because the Olympics, the beauty and the cruelty of it is you get one shot, right? You get one bite at that apple, and you put all this time and effort in for 4 years, and all it takes is one minor slip up, and your goals and aspirations go right out the window. So that was the biggest story, I thought, for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that one. And I had to look up when I saw she was competing in a heptathlon. I didn't know what a heptathlon was. So it's a 100-meter hurdle. It's like 7 events in one event. It's 100-meter hurdles, high jump, shot put, 200-meter dash, long jump, javelin, and an 800-meter run. So it's really the jack of all trades when it comes to track and field. And the second event that they have in this event is the high jump. And Hawkins had a no height is what they call it, meaning she did not record a height in the high jump. They she passed up the first height, which is above what her PR is. Her PR is 1.85 meters, and so she couldn't end up clearing at 1.71 meters. So she's cleared this height before, but just couldn't make it happen in the Olympics. So she didn't score in the second event of this slew of events. So, I mean, that virtually put her out of medal contention fairly early in the competition. But give her credit, though, stuck with it, PR'd in the shot put, and, high jump being one of her best events. I mean, she says, hey, I'm at the Olympics, I'm going to stick with it. Looking at some articles and doing some research for this show, some people are saying she probably would have finished 12th or 13th in the event had she scored what she normally does in the high jump. But unfortunately, it was towards the bottom. But hey, getting to the Olympics, still nothing to hang your head about.
Yeah, it is a calculated risk with the high jump. A lot of times, high jumpers will clear that opening height, and then you can opt to sit out until, just because you jump the first height doesn't mean you have to go jump the second one. You can choose to sit out. And a lot of times you'll clear that first height just to have something in the bank. And so it was a bit of a risk for Sherry, but it's okay. Like you said, she rebounded, got a PR in another event, and it was just incredible to see her continue to persevere. I thought it was really outstanding.
Yeah, and always good to see former Idaho high school athletes competing on the world stage too. So, definitely cool to see her in the Olympics. Moving now to Mateo Jorgensen. He competed in the men's road race, again, a Boise High grad, finished 9th in the road race. The top American finisher. I mean, he is the top cyclist in the United States right now. Cycling is very traditionally a European sport, but only Jorgensen and the guy that ended up winning the gold medal in this event, only he and Mateo were the only two guys to finish in the top 10 in both the Olympics and the Tour de France. So, I mean, he's the real deal, and he's really making Boise look good right now.
Yeah. What can we get him some sort of award for that? I mean, you don't get the bronze, silver, or gold, but there's got to be something, right?
Yeah, we'll give him a Fighting Tater award. We'll give our first one out to Mateo here. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's just been awesome to watch his journey this summer. Tracking him through the Tour de France, now in the Olympics, again a top 10 finisher in both events, and his career has been fun to watch. Talking to some people who know him, who also, I mean, I don't know him personally, but I know people who know him, living in France full time now to do this cycling thing over in Europe. So he's really making Idaho proud right now. And then the last one we'll touch on here for Idaho high school athletes, former Idaho high school athletes, Alyssa Mendoza, women's boxer out of Middleton, ended up winning her first bout in the Olympics, and then falling in the round of 16. The girl she lost to had a first round bye. So, I mean, that was, she's facing one of the top boxers in the world, but fought hard in round of 16. And, she is also one of the top players in her event. That's an American. She's one of the top women's boxers in the United States right now. And she made it to the round of 16 in that event.
Pretty epic. And I'm glad you brought this to my attention, because all the headlines I saw from women's boxing were very controversial for other reasons.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's a positive story coming out of women's boxing.
Yeah.
So, and then quickly here, Emily Sams, who was an alternate for the U.S. women's soccer team, played a year at Centennial, then moved to Florida. But she was the 3rd overall pick, excuse me, in the 2023 NWSL draft, drafted by the Orlando Pride. And the women's tournament is not an under 23 tournament like the men's soccer tournament is. So it's the top women's players in the country. So did play a year at Centennial. She was an alternate on Team USA, which the women's team did take home a gold medal. A few college connections that we can touch on here. Marissa Howard, the women's 3,000 meter steeplechase, finished 7th in her event. Ari Maybe out of College of Southern Idaho, a women's volleyball player, outside hitter, played for CSI. And then Sam Atkin, a men's 5,000 meter graduated from LCSC up north, finished 18th in his heat. He runs for Great Britain, maybe plays for Japan. Obviously, Marissa Howard, an American runner. So there you have it. There's our Olympic recap. And then also wanted to touch on this too. Had a couple athletes, cyclists in particular, who were trained by Kristen Armstrong. Kristen Armstrong, 3 gold medals in the women's time trials and 3 Olympics in a row. She trained a couple cyclists. Chloe Dygert, who was part of that gold medal team in the team pursuit, also competed in the women's road race. And then Haley Batten, who was a mountain biker in women's cross country, a silver medalist in that event. So that's just a trickle down event where you see one person who's kicking butt at their event, and then here comes other athletes that they're training. And so more and more ties end up being to Idaho, even though they're not technically from Idaho, but trained by someone who trained here once upon a time and ended up winning gold medals.
Yeah, pretty cool. I did want to circle back real quick just to Emily Sams, 3rd overall pick in the NWSL draft. Yeah. Idaho's crushing it when it comes to the NWSL, the largest contract in league history. Of course, 2 years ago went to Maria Sanchez from American Falls. So
that's right. Yeah, and she played at Idaho State for a couple of years as well. And so I mean that's women's soccer up and coming here in Idaho.
No doubt.
All right, we'll transition now down to Idaho high school football, which you're the main event for this one here, Brandon. We got high school football season coming up here in just a couple of weeks. We pulled the top 11 high school recruits in the 2025 class. So these are kids who are entering their senior year. We ranked them 11 through 1. We'll start at 11, work our way down through 1. Don't send us our hate mail for this list. This is a 24/7 sports list. So we did not make this list. We just kind of copied this list. So this is coming from 24/7 sports. And before we kind of dive into this thing, let's go ahead and recap last year's class, which probably the best ever to come out of Idaho. I mean, you have that headlined by one of the top recruits in the country in Gatlin Bear. You also had Rakeem Johnson, a linebacker out of Bishop Kelly, who's going to Michigan State as well. So really a solid class from top to bottom. It's going to be tough for this year's class to top that.
Yeah, this has been a trend recently, just in terms of Idaho athletes going to the next level. You know, I looked at ESPN's recruiting rankings because they're a little more selective, right? They only publish the cream of the cream. And Idaho has seen a growth in the last couple of years, Lucas. 2021, there was 2 recruits that were ranked by ESPN. Jonah Ellis from Moscow, who went to the University of Utah and is now crushing it for the Denver Broncos. Got his first pressure last weekend. In his rookie season, and Ben Ford, of course, who went to Boise State from Eagle. And then in the class of 2022, it jumped from 2 to 4. The headliner there, of course, was Colston Loveland, the tight end from Gooding, who's now at Michigan, probably the best tight end in all of college football. Class of 23 also saw 4 kind of big-time major FBS blue-chip recruits. The headliner there was Kenyon Sadiq from Skyline, who's at Oregon now as kind of a wide receiver, tight end athlete. And then last year, it jumped from 4 all the way up to 7, Lucas. 7 recruits were ranked by ESPN. You mentioned Gatlin Bear, the wide receiver who famously decommitted from Boise State and then committed to Oregon. Rakeem Johnson, who's going to play on the O-line at Michigan State from Bishop Kelly. Michigan State also signed Martin Connington, the kicker from Mountain View, which was incredible. And then this kicker wasn't on everybody's radar at the start of last season, but Tyler Kinsman from Skyview has a huge leg. He's going to Oregon to kick, which is phenomenal. And then, you know, more locally to our area, you've got Jaden Tuia from Thunder Ridge, who was a great offensive guard. He's going to go to Oregon State. Going to Washington State is Camden DeGraw, the great defensive end from Coeur d'Alene up north. And then Trevor McKenna from Bora, right there in Boise, staying with Boise State. He's going to play offensive tackle, although I would argue he probably could play on the defensive line as well. He had like 6 sacks in one game last year on the D line also. Yeah.
You know, I love watching kids, you know, not only go to Boise State as my dog's make an appearance in the window down there. We have
I
two
see that.
dogs, in case you were wondering. But anyway, but seeing guys like Colston Loveland, Kenyon Sadiq, Kinsman play for these top college football programs. I mean, Colston, like you said Colston Loveland's top tight end in college football, and I'm right there with you. Catches passes, obviously starts for Michigan, but what he does in the blocking game as well is just perfect for Michigan's scheme. Maybe it changes now with Harbaugh gone, but Oregon, especially this year, I know Oregon's going to the Big Ten, and make no mistake, Oregon's going to be one of the best teams in college football this year. I think Oregon is a legit contender to win the Big Ten, and I would go to say they get Ohio State at home this year in Eugene. I think if you've ever been to Eugene in November, it's not warm. They don't give out margaritas on the beach in Eugene in November. It's I think they're going to be fine with the cold weather games. USC, UCLA, maybe not so much, but Oregon's going to be just fine in the Big Ten.
Yeah, so they'll fit in seamlessly. And so, when we look now to this year's class, the class of 25, you got to remember, like last year was like, we'll look back and say that was an all timer. I mean, 7 guys going to FBS programs. That's just unheard of in the state of Idaho. It's probably going to be closer to like 4 or 5 this year. The big blue chips that get ranked by ESPN. But we haven't even touched on all of the guys that are playing in the Big Sky Conference or at FCS schools, or even, there's some really good guys that end up in the NAIA at the College of Idaho. We know what a factory they are. So just keep that in mind, okay, when we're talking about these recruits coming up. Not everybody can go to the big time schools, but the fact that these guys are in the mix to go play college football is just incredible. So
yeah. So let's go ahead and get into the top 11 list here from 24/7 Sports. We'll start with number 11. It's Zeke Martinez, quarterback from Meridian. Picked up an offer from Memphis. That's the biggest school that has an offer on the table from him right now, as well as Nebraska Kearney. Martinez, he's going to be a 3-year starter at Meridian. Meridian has contended for state titles the last couple of years. A very powerful running game. Martinez a little bit quicker in that running game, but they call it a T offense. That Meridian, right, where it's not quite a wing T, it's a T. I still don't quite understand the full difference between it. You have to go ask John Zammerlin, head coach at Meridian, but their quarterback Zeke Martinez checking in here at number 11.
Yeah, 6 foot, 210 pounds. You mentioned it. His basically started since his freshman year when his older brother Malachi Martinez was a senior and was the starting quarterback. Well, Malachi gets hurt. Zeke gets called up from the JV squad, gets thrown into a team that gets like very deep into the playoffs. And yeah, all he's done is win in his 4 years at Meridian. That's the most important stat. You look at the overall stats and you're right. Meridian likes to run the ball first, pass the ball second. But obviously what he put out there on tape, Memphis really liked. And I think it probably helps having John Zamberlin as his head coach at Meridian High. Of course, Zamberlin coached for years at Idaho State, big college level. And I'm sure he has lots of connections, like Nathan Reynolds, right? He's at Idaho State now as a linebacker. So that helps too, having a coach that's got those college connections. But this, to me, he's the clear-cut top QB in the class. He's got a lot of those intangibles, those things that you just can't measure. But, man, he just delivers in crunch time, it seems like.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see, if he ends up going to Memphis, how Memphis would utilize him. I could see them moving him somewhere because he's such a good athlete. I think that what they see with Zeke is the athleticism. I think Nebraska Kearney, sees him as the future quarterback. But it'd be interesting if he chooses Memphis. I'd be interested to see what they have in mind there. So. All right, moving along here. Kai Wheeler, tight end from Coeur d'Alene High School, checking in here at number 10. Very good basketball player as well. Good size, runs well, has an offer from Minot State. I would imagine more are coming this year.
Yeah, Kai Wheeler's got good size, as you mentioned, 6'3", 200, great basketball player, can really elevate. He made an incredible catch in the state championship game last year when Highland played Coeur d'Alene. Just a circus, defenders all over him, over his head, stretched down the field. He can elevate. I think that's what coaches really love. He's a guy that you can line up out wide and you don't have to worry about him losing the matchup one-on-one. He knows how to get that separation. He knows how to get open. Coeur d'Alene's going to be interesting this year. Last year, they were more run-based, leaned on their defense. It's kind of the opposite this year. The quarterback is back, Caden Simmons. He's only a junior, and like all the receivers are back. So Coeur d'Alene's going to lean on that passing game a little to start the season, and Kai Wheeler's going to be a big part of that for sure.
Yeah. So, all right. So that's Kai Wheeler at number 10, again, tight end for Coeur d'Alene. Number 9, here's where we start to get some of the Big Sky schools checking in. Sione Perkins, offensive tackle from Eagle. And you want to talk about size, Perkins has got it. He's got offers from Eastern Washington, Idaho, Montana State, Boise State, and BYU. So this is where you really start to get into the consistency of Division I schools starting to offer these kids, is starting here with Perkins.
You're going to see a lot of offensive linemen from the 6A Southern Idaho Conference, that Treasure Valley League, on this top 11 list, and for good reason. What's the old saying? You can't coach size, right? 6'9", 260. Now he's going to go redshirt somewhere and put on, you want him to be 300 plus by the time he's stepping onto the college field. But man, with that size and that reach, and he has been an anchor at right tackle for Eagle the past couple of seasons, it's going to be really fun to see which direction he goes. So
and he's going to be one of the best tackles in Idaho high school football this year. We'll get to who most project is going to be the best. He's already committed somewhere, but that's to be talked about here as we roll into number 8, Nicholas Maloff, inside linebacker from Meridian. A couple more Big Sky offers here. He checks in at number 8, offers from Idaho State and Montana State. You're going to see a lot of high schools on this list, Brandon. It's Meridian has a couple, Rocky has quite a bit, and Meridian is they're going to be one of the top teams in 5A again, or 6A now, 6A this year, and Maloff is a big reason why here at inside linebacker.
Yeah, this is another one of those guys that I think is going to play probably on the offensive line in college. He's got 6'3", 315. A lot of these guys have played tackle in high school will move inside to guard at the college level if they don't have the height. Like a Sione Perkins, okay, you're tall, you've got the long arms, we can park you at tackle. There's a lot of high school tackles that become guards. I think that's what's going to happen with Maloff here. I'm not sure where he's going to line up for Meridian, but really, I think his future is definitely on that offensive side of the ball. And like we said, there's no shortage of really as a former offensive lineman that did not play in college, by the way. I was very average in high school, but it warms my heart to see all these guys getting good looks at the next level.
Yeah. Well, that's just kind of the Idaho brand of football, and just kind of where it's going, and where our athletes are coming from is these kind of blue collar positions on the field. It's a lot of linebackers, it's a lot of linemen, it's tight ends, right? So and Maloff is just another to add to the list. All right, going from the beef to the skill positions here at number 7, Nate Williams, listed as an athlete. He's at Eagle High School. Couple in-state offers here from Idaho and Idaho State. Idaho, as you'll notice, once we start getting into our top 5 here, is really doing a good job in recruiting here in the state, and they're trying to get another one here in Williams.
Just as a quick aside, if I'm Coach Eck at Idaho or I'm Coach Hawkins at Idaho State, I am offering every single guy on this list. Like every single one of these guys should have Idaho and Idaho State next to their name. Like that's just a no-brainer to me. And so I'm glad to see, at least for most of these guys, that's the case. Yeah, Nate Williams from Eagle, he could play D tackle. He could play D end. Eagle kind of uses their guys interchangeably on that defensive line. And so that versatility, I think, is going to really help him at the next level. 6'4", 240. So you would think probably going to slot inside in college, but the sky is the limit for sure.
Yeah, and Eagle, again, one of the best defenses in what was 5A, now 6A this year. Eagle should be pretty good again this year, especially defensively, but may not be as good as they were last year, but Eagles should be one of the better teams in 6A heading into the new year as well. Checking in at number 6, we have our first 5A athlete here on the list, Mason Cron, out of Skyview. He has already committed, so he's one of the first player on this list to have already committed. He is going to play for Coach Eck at the University of Idaho, passing up offers from Missouri State, Boise State, Texas Tech, and Wyoming. So, opportunities to play at some bigger schools, and decides to stay in state and go up north.
Yeah, I think it's a choice you have to make. Do you want to, because those bigger schools that offered him, the offer is probably a little tenuous and a little fluid. Yeah. The scholarships change a lot at those bigger levels, and what they may have promised you in May, June, or July may change by the time you get to November, December, January. And so for Cron, I love the move. You bet on having a good year or two at Idaho, and then you can hit the portal and go to a bigger school if that's the option. But now he doesn't have to worry about it. He doesn't have to stress about where am I going to go play. He's got that taken care of, and Coach David Robinson at Skyview loves it because now his guy isn't distracted. Now his only focus is getting dubs on the field. So that, I think this worked out perfectly. Mason Cron is going to play tight end and wide receiver. He can line up in and out for the Hawks, but really where he's going to play in college, I think, is at linebacker. And 6'2", 220. He brings great size and physicality. This is kind of low key. I think this, when we look back and it's all said and done, I think we could look at Mason Cron as maybe being the most impactful recruit from this class. I think he should be ranked a little higher on this list. That's just me personally.
Yeah.
But
well, yeah, and it could be he is the highest ranked player from a 5A school on this list. So I don't know, maybe that plays somewhat into it. But every single other kid on this list is from a 6A school, and he's the only kid from a 5A school. I mean, Skyview is not a tiny school by any means, but and Skyview is one of I call them floater schools. They float between the highest class, which was 5A, now 6A. So they floated between 4A and 5A for as long as I've been here, which is almost 10 years now. But they're going to play in 5A this year. But Skyview is still a good school. Cron's just a good athlete too. He's quick. He's got good size, and I agree with you. I think he should be ranked a little bit higher. But as we roll into our top 5 here, sticking with some of these skill positions. Hayden Thompson, a safety out of Rocky Mountain, has not committed yet, but as he enters his senior year, offers from several Big Sky schools and the College of Idaho. Those Big Sky schools: Eastern Washington, Idaho, Idaho State, Montana State, and the College of Idaho. Another college you're going to see a lot on these lists is Montana State. Montana State does a really good job of recruiting in the Treasure Valley, particularly when Idaho and Idaho State kind of still to an extent weren't as strong. Idaho in particular, when they weren't as strong, Montana State did a really good job of coming down to the Treasure Valley and picking up some of the top guys out of this area. So they're trying to get another one here in Thompson. I
mean, they came into Pocatello, Idaho State's backyard, 3 years ago, and took Titan Fleischman, the great offensive tackle from Century. I still can't believe ISU allowed that to happen, but that's So you're going to see here now, as we get to the top 5 of the list, Rocky Mountain is a program that just consistently produces high-end college players. CJ Jacobson, who's a tight end at Utah now, Luke Lucchini, who's a tight end at Washington. Scott Kreiner is the coach now at Rocky Mountain, and he's been around. He's coached at Northern Arizona, Boise State, University of Cincinnati. He coached in the XFL, the original XFL for the Las Vegas Outlaws. So he's got lots of connections. And so these Rocky Mountain guys, this is my favorite to win the 6A championship this year. They have all the pieces in place. Really, the only question mark is at quarterback. I think they'll figure that out, and they'll lean on all of these incredible playmakers, including Hayden Thompson, who's the free safety of that Rocky Mountain defense. Probably will be a safety in college too, I would imagine. But he's just the start for what promises to be a great Rocky Mountain group.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, just looking here in the top 5 for Rocky, I mean, they have 1, 2, 3 players in the top 5. And some others that we'll touch on in looking ahead to the 2026 class. But I agree with you. I think Rocky is is the favorite to win state this year at the 6A level. So going back down to the trenches now with Shepherd Fish at number 4, edge rusher out of Capital, another U of I commit here. So Coach X snagging 2 guys out of the top 10 now, passing up offers from Idaho State and Montana. So Fish, another edge guy, is a sack machine, and that's what Idaho's hoping he'll be at the next level too.
Yeah, Shepherd Fish is, I like the loyalty here. You know, Capital is a program that's been down the last couple of years. We see this a lot. Guys in the Treasure Valley will go from one school to another, stuck with Capital, trusted that he was good enough. And that's one of the fallacies. Oh, I have to be on a good team or a super team to get noticed. Well, no, if you're a good player, it doesn't matter if your team went 1-8. College coaches are going to notice you. That's what Idaho noticed. I think Shepherd Fish will probably play D-end in college. He's 6'5", 230, probably put on a little weight. He's a great pass rusher, and he's so important to Capital that he also starts on the offensive line for the Eagles. You don't see that very often at the 6A level, but he does go both ways for a Capital team that needs it.
Yeah, for sure. And New Capital, you know, you see the Broncos stuff in the background. Always be proud of Jake the Snake coming out of Capital. So obviously Jake Plummer played quarterback for the Broncos when I was growing up. So that was always love that. So moving into number 3, we have Isaiah Reed, another Rocky kid listed as an athlete, committed to Nevada. And he announced that on social media just a couple weeks ago. He had offers from smart schools here: Air Force, Yale, Army, Dartmouth. Ends up going to Reno, staying out west here as he's going to Nevada. But Isaiah Reed, another piece to this Rocky Mountain team, which makes them such a contender this year at the 6A level.
Yeah, he lined up at defensive end for Rocky Mountain last year. He's probably going to be a linebacker, edge rusher in college. We do these top 10 lists during the off season at IdahoSports.com. We give you the top 10 players at each position, basically. And it's not just the 10 best recruits, it's the 10 best players. There's a lot of small school guys. There are some of those big recruits. We had Isaiah Reed on our top 10 defensive lineman list, and then he committed to Nevada a couple of weeks later as a linebacker. And we released our top 10 linebacker list, and somebody was like, "You big idiot, where's Isaiah Reed? He just signed with Nevada." I'm like, well, he's on the defensive line list. Rocky's going to line him up in a lot of different spots this year, along with a couple of other high-end recruits that are juniors. They're going to be interchangeable pieces, and that versatility is just going to help him. I thought this was a slam dunk. Great move to commit to Nevada.
Yeah, I think this is a great move for Nevada as well. Anytime you can put sizable athletes at linebacker, I mean, that just fits it to a T at the next level. Another Rocky kid here at number 2, Caden Kimball Turner, has not committed yet. Does have an offer from Army, Eastern Washington, Idaho, and the University of Wyoming, which is probably the biggest name on the list, a Mountain West school. So I don't know, you have one Mountain West school here in Wyoming offering a local kid, and Boise State not on the list yet. I don't know.
Another guy that just jumps off the page. He plays corner, probably going to be a corner in college, 5'10", 185, runs a 10.91 in the 100-meter dash. But this is the stat I love most of all, 3.92 GPA. I mean, with a GPA, the sky is the limit for a guy that's got speed, instincts, and the academics. Yes, he's going to have options. It's going to be really fascinating to see which way he goes.
Yeah, and you know, all of these kids that, other than the ones that are committed, obviously are probably going to get more offers as they head into the senior year. And number 1 on our list here, offensive tackle out of Middleton, Dallin Grimes. He has committed to the hometown Boise State Broncos. Did have offers from Eastern Washington, Idaho, Montana, and Portland State. As I think our dinner might be here. So the joys of a live show, right?
Yep.
But no, Dallin Grimes, offensive tackle here out of Middleton. And I'll let you talk about him while my dogs lose their mind here.
Yeah, I'm just going to, there you go, mute that mic. This was the first kind of big domino to fall, was Dallin Grimes. We weren't sure Who was going to be the first big time commit to sign? Turns out it's Dallin Grimes staying in the hometown. 6'5", 240, going to be a fantastic offensive tackle. Middleton is a team that could have played at a lower level this year, 5A if they wanted to. They said, nah, we'll continue to play with the big boys, even though we're one of the smallest schools. So they're going to be at the 6A level. And again, to have a player this renowned come through Middleton, it's been a while. So Middleton's kind of in the suburbs of Boise. Middleton says we're not really part of that state of Ada. We're a little removed from that. And so I think this is it's going to be an exciting season for Middleton, and to have Dallin Grimes then stay local where all those Middleton fans can go watch him play on Saturdays. It's going to be fantastic too. Yeah.
And what Ryan and I talk about this a lot. One school, one town, right? Middleton's one of them. Middleton's just grown like a weed ever since the Treasure Valley. I mean, they were a 2A school once upon a time, and now here they are as a 6A school. Not only a 6A school, but they had 5A enrollment numbers, and they're going to play up in the 6A. They petitioned up. They want to play with the Rockies, with the Eagles, with those big schools. So yeah, that'll be fun to watch there for Middleton. So that is your top 11 for the 2025 class, all these kids again heading into their senior seasons. So, but that's not all that we need to keep an eye on this year. The real kind of interesting players to watch is when they go into their junior year. And so looking ahead here to the 2026 class here, Brandon. I mean, we got a list here on another Rocky kid, Jax Turner at inside linebacker, Ryan Brecky, a tight end out of Hawaii, who I think has a lot of potential. Rowan Rupp, another defensive lineman out of Rocky. Rocky's got another tight end, another linebacker out of Meridian, and then Hudson Lewis, wide receiver out of Timberline. Those are kind of just a couple players that we're keeping an eye on as they head into their junior years.
Yeah, I'll give you real quick one guy from the class of 2025 that isn't ranked that I think you should keep an eye on. It's a tight end from Bonneville, Tavon Sakaguchi. He's a little raw, but he is 6'5", 240 pounds. He's going to be a project for a college coach somewhere, but I think he's got really good potential. So that's a guy that wasn't on that top 11 list for this year's group of seniors, Tavon Sakaguchi from Bonneville. Now looking ahead to the class of 2026, I think the best player in the class was Kai Callan, a cornerback from Highland over there in Pocatello. He has already committed to James Madison University, and he actually moved to Carrollton, Georgia, believe it or not, to play bigger, better competition. He's got a relative that is still, I think it's his dad, still lives in Pocatello and coaches for Highland, but for Kai Callan, now he's in Georgia playing against uber talented guys. So with him gone, it did leave this void in who's the best guy in the class. If you look at 24/7 Sports right now, it's Jax Tanner, offensive guard from Rocky. I think the best guy in the class, though, just me personally, is Ryan Brecky. Fantastic wide receiver for Hawaii. Probably going to be a tight end in college. Maybe he could be a big slot because he's been balling since his sophomore year. Last year, he burst onto the scene, and every week I was like, I'm telling you, this Ryan Brecky guy is really good. He makes these incredible catches, great separation. That's a guy I would keep an eye on this year for the class of 26, Ryan Brecky from Hawaii.
Yeah, I'm with you. And, he plays basketball for Hawaii, too. Came off the bench for Hawaii. I mean, Hawaii's just stacked when it comes to basketball. But even just watching him play basketball, too. I mean, he comes off the bench and just gives you effort minutes. And, I mean, that's just – I mean, he has all the things you look for when what you ask of a player as well. So, I'm with you. I like Ryan Brecky. I like Rowan Rupp, too, out of Rocky Mountain. I think he's a big defensive lineman that can make some noise this year. And then again, Gary Mitchell, a linebacker out of Meridian. We've had a good history with linebackers out of Meridian so far. So anyone who plays defense for Meridian is on one of these lists, I think, is someone to watch out for. So, yeah. So, all right, there you have it. There's the look ahead to the 2026 class, our top 11 for the 2025 class. Brandon, just a couple weeks away here from high school football. I know you guys pump out a lot of shows related to high school football, a couple new ones coming out this year. The floor is yours to promote those here.
Yeah, I'll give a quick plug for all of our other Prepcast offerings and podcast offerings. We have our 4 high school based Prepcasts, and they're for the 4 regions of Idaho: the North Idaho Prepcast, the Treasure Valley Prepcast, the Magic Valley Prepcast, and the East Idaho Prepcast. That's where we talk specific high school sports in each area of the state each week. We have, of course, this show, the Fighting Taters Show. We also have Yappin' Sports with Lance Taylor. That is a new show we launched this fall where Lance talks about big nationwide sports stories. We talked about NIL and the transfer portal this week, and then he kind of drills down into how that's affecting things here in Idaho. And then we have a couple of seasonal prepcasts that we do in the fall. The Idaho 8-man prepcast, where we talk about just 8-man football. That's starting up again next week as well. You can find all of the podcast offerings at our website, IdahoSports.com. They're right to the left of the homepage. You click on your favorite show. Of course, you can subscribe to all of these on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, or wherever you download and subscribe to podcasts. And then, of course, on the written side, we have all of our high school football previews. We write a preview for every single high school football team in the state of Idaho. It's a labor of love.
Yeah. I've written most of the 6A, 5A schools. I still got to write a couple more, but
get to work.
Yeah, right. So, but anyway, Brandon, appreciate you hopping on here today. Like you said, Ryan had the week off. He'll be back in the coming weeks. We'll touch on a lot more college football and ties to Idaho and how it relates to Idaho high school football as we go along through the Idaho high school football season. But quickly, as we wrap things up here, Brandon, I want your quick prediction: 6A state champion, 5A state champion. Who do you like?
Rocky Mountain for 6A, kind of big 3 to me in 6A. Yeah. Rocky Mountain, Rigby, Coeur d'Alene. Those are the 3 contenders. I think Rocky on paper just has the most complete team right now. 5A is a little trickier. I'm kind of leaning Skyline. Skyline brings back so much to the table. They lost in the semifinals last year. Bishop Kelly also is going to be very good, the defending champions, but I got to stick to my East Idaho roots and say Skyline.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Rocky at 6A. Until Bishop Kelly loses a game with their new coach, Bishop Kelly. So those are my predictions. Bishop Kelly obviously won state last year. So, yep. All right, that is going to do it for us here tonight. Appreciate everyone tuning in to the Fighting Tater Show, episode 2. We're going to start doing these things here weekly as we go along through the high school and college football seasons. He's Brandon Beatty. My name is Lucas Gephardt, and we'll see you next week.